Hello everybody, my name is Frank Norris and I'm the Frank part of the Frank and Stan Chat, and to my left is my very good friend Stan Johnson. Good morning, Stan.
I'm the Stan part, apparently.
Yeah.
It depends how people type it.
Yeah. It's been an absolutely well, I'm struggling for the words actually. It's been an awful few days. And I, even though I don't have any children at the moment, all the children have gone through their A-levels, and some of them, our eldest was part of the ASA2 fiasco. But actually what these young students have faced over the last couple of days, for many, has been awful. And what I want to do, Stan, if it's all right with you, I just want to read, if I may, a blog that was sent through to me only about 5 minutes ago.
Right.
And it probably gets us into it. So I'll take 3 minutes if it's okay, just to read through. Is that all right?
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay. It's titled An Education System Designed by the Privileged for the Privileged. The catastrophic and fundamentally flawed education system to moderate A-levels designed by this government today shone a bright light on how the system is designed by the privileged to ensure they remain privileged and in power. It is my moral duty as a young and proud Muslim Pakistani female hoping to study for a politics degree at the University of Leeds to speak out on behalf of young people from socially deprived areas, including those from BAME backgrounds. I received my A-level grades today, which were awarded through the government's approved Ofqual exam board. How can achieving A-star AC in mock exams and consistently attaining A's and A-stars for regular assessments throughout the full year possibly equate to a BBC for final grades? The answer is it doesn't. This catastrophic system is designed for the elite and, put simply, is not good enough. The system tells us we're only as good as the educational institute we attend, and we do not expect many of us to excel in these establishments if the students are from socially deprived areas. You have designed the system to further enable the status quo for generation upon generation. You've created the conditions to keep us in socially deprived areas, and again you continue to create conditions that prevent us from breaking free from this unfair cycle. Certainly, this fundamentally biased system requires an immediate rework to stop disadvantages for students and young people who do not have the privilege to pay for private education, tutoring, and improved life experiences. The fact that the government and exam boards have disregarded the highly skilled and expert knowledge of teachers who've had the opportunity firsthand to assess the academic ability of their students over a prolonged period proves that this government are not only solely concerned with privilege for the few, statistics instead of individuality, personal growth and experiences of my generation, but also highlights the lack of value they place on our skilled educational leads who have direct influence on shaping and developing the minds of the future generations. She does go on then to cover a number of other issues, but she says at the end, this government does not represent me or many others like me. The lack of affirmative action for BAME and disadvantaged young people must end now. It must lead to true change if we are to truly see diverse and equal opportunities for those that are disadvantaged as a result of the system created by the elite few and not the disadvantaged many. I'm going to use my personal power to lead change and encourage others in similar situations like me to speak out and demand change. So I think the issue here, isn't it, Stan, is primarily that I listened to young people on television and radio yesterday and felt as though for the first time their voice was more powerful than mine because it was affecting them, and the realization that a lot of things are stacked up against some students far more than others. I was present on the webinar. The examinations board through Ofqual had a webinar which ran at 8:15 yesterday. And I don't know who else was on it. I know Jeff Barton was on it because he asked a question. But the 300-odd page technical paper was released at 9:30. So we didn't have that evidence. We didn't have that. So what happened was there was a sort of 20-minute presentation about the headlines. But it became clear at that point that the size of the cohort was a fairly important factor. So if you were teaching 60 A-level students mathematics at the large sixth-form college, as opposed to 5 or 6 in a small setting or an independent school, then actually you were actually going to be at a great advantage coming from the smaller setting than the larger one. And so I asked a question specifically about whether or not the algorithm had favoured, or the system had favoured, those from the independent sector. Not just, I'm not blaming them, I mean, that's the situation it is. But actually I was told that it didn't favour them. But then when the technical paper came through, and you looked at the impact of the grade changes, it was as clear as day to me. You know, and I'm not a statistician. There was 350 odd pages of very detailed graphs and algorithms and formula and everything. I mean, it was way beyond, but even my sort of novice mind could actually look at that, some of those, and look at those potential difficulties here in this system. I felt as though yesterday, and again this morning, there was a young woman from North London on BBC Breakfast. These are young people that are not going to let this get in their way, but actually I think that any human being in this country now who's looking at those young people and saying this is a fair, robust system is completely missed the situation. Is off it. It just doesn't understand it, because these are young people, these are individuals. You know, the whole system is set up to try and preserve the national picture. The cost of individuals, as if to say the individuality which that student conveyed, that's gone. You know, and actually we're dealing with young people.
Yeah, well, didn't Nick Gibb come out and say that no grade will be more than 1 below the teacher grade? Well, that's simply not true. Now, he either wasn't told that before he said it, or he said it knowing it not to be true. I just find that really bizarre, because I saw some young girl talking about a C being downgraded to a U.
Well, there's been a fascinating tweet that came through this morning that actually has explained all of that. And actually this is around the ranking of students rather than the grade that they're being predicted has been the key factor here. And actually you can run out, you could have a much brighter group than you normally have, and you run out of high grades to give because the system won't allow you. So you end up with, even a student with a D can end up with a U, because they need to have somebody in the U category, because that's what historically the algorithm is out. You know, so I mean, the idea that no one will be more than 1 grade out, that's not true, is it?
No, it's not true.
3 grade differences here.
Yeah. So you know, a promise on the morning or the day before of saying, don't worry, you won't be more than 1 grade out. Actually, if you then get your results the following day and find you 2 or 3 grades out, that's a significant kick in the teeth.
Yes.
Plus, I mean, I understand the difficulties. What you go back to is, why are we wedded to an exam-based system? And again, it wasn't that long ago that a percentage of coursework contributed to the overall grade, in which case, if we'd still had that, we'd have been saying, right, your coursework was putting you on for an A, you haven't done the exam, but at least we've got some evidence that you are at A standard. Now,
they must have
all that.
They must have known, though, Stan, that this, they must have modelled this. These results, that 350-page paper was not produced last.
No. No, and I read somewhere.
Why didn't they just get to a position where the grades that they were going to give were actually shared confidentially, perhaps even with that, not even with the individual names of the students, but actually,
well, I think they could have
a
done
week
it
or so, 2 weeks ago. Why couldn't that happen?
I think they could have done that with the schools and with named to say, look, this is the way it's looking to come out. we're asking you professionally now to judge where we've got it wrong. And it won't be everybody, but there will be some outliers where we've got it wrong. So what we're asking you to do is, one, point out the outliers, and secondly, give us some evidence to support your judgment further than what you've already done. I mean, that was possible. I doubt there's a head teacher or a senior management team in the country that wouldn't have spent 2 or 3 days going through that for the sake of the students. And to me, if they had this pattern, this result 2 weeks ago, it seems an obvious thing to do. But it's looking like we're going to disadvantage some. Let's just looking at the outliers. Let's just look at how that works for them, instead of oh well, it'll all come out in the wash and you can appeal. And I mean, the ridiculous thing about you can use your mock. I mean, that just shows a complete.
Anybody. I mean, it does show, doesn't it, how short they are. I mean, there've been occasions through all of this where I am staggered by the lack of current expertise being drawn into the DfE. We can go back to lockdown. We can go back to all of that. We can talk about the actions they took in terms of the free school meal voucher system. If they'd had a group of people in the DfE who are recent, at least fairly recent, or even current practitioners, they would have said, look, this is going to cause a few problems, But it feels to me as if this idea, well, get rid of your experts. I'm not talking about an expert. I'm just talking about somebody who knows. They don't have an expert, but somebody who knows. That mock decision, that showed how little they have in terms of knowledge of what is happening in school.
Don't you think, Frank, that for people like some of these ministers, some of the cabinet, you refer to what you know yourself, and they would know regular testing, mocks that were done under exam conditions, but in small cohorts in small private schools. So you think, oh, that's what must happen everywhere.
Yeah, but Gavin Williamson didn't have that. He didn't.
Well, I know we're not slagging people off, so I don't think we should even mention his name because I won't be able to.
I suppose in a sense, you're right, and I feel as though the litany of, I mean, it's amazing how, because we've got the GCSEs next week. We've got an even bigger issue about getting schools open in September.
Yeah.
I mean, if ever you were to line up a series of events that were to actually give you an opportunity to lose confidence in the message that's being portrayed, coming towards the most important bit of action that we all need to support, this is it. And I say next week, we will then be about a week away from opening. And next week is going to be absolute carnage, isn't it?
Yeah.
Much bigger group of kids right across the country. It's going to,
I mean, I suppose the slight difference for next week is the immediacy this week in results and what that meant for university places. Because, I mean, there was just one report on the news where some young student had not got the grades, had sort of challenged that, and then rang the university to say, actually, we're full now. We've taken all our places, and there was that organisation to think about. Because I think if the government had known that this was going to be a mess, they could have done something to delay clearing, delay the university acceptances. I can't remember. This is my trouble. I read stuff and I can't remember where I've read it. But the universities were up for, in some cases, not starting till January to allow, one, for COVID, but two, to allow a process to develop properly. Well, all those were possibilities in 6 months to at least say, is that something we should look at? And instead, we've done nothing. All right, panic.
Yeah.
And I suspect that's where we'll be on the 1st of September.
I mean, if this was a situation for us as leaders, the big leader, and we had a catastrophic event that needed managing, wouldn't we find it a little bit strange that perhaps the head of department or the academic deputy fronted this up? You know, I felt for the Secretary of State, because it felt as though, apart from Nick Gibb, it was him and Nick, you know, and actually this is such a significant event, and what none of the other cabinet ministers, Grant Shapps had to comment today only because he was having to defend the decision on the France quarantine issue and Belgium and wherever. It wasn't as if he wanted to be there. It wasn't as if, oh well, look, you know, education's under a bit of pressure, we need to sort of show solidarity. We've got the Prime Minister on holiday. He's going to be on holiday next week.
But he said it was robust.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think
a word that means nothing.
It means nothing. It absolutely not. It means nothing to that girl that's written this paper. It means nothing to those students that we've seen on television. It's nothing to the students and parents of those young people on radio. And I just feel as though, you know, that they are.
Aren't we back, Frank, to what we said about leadership generally several weeks ago? But actually, when you get things wrong, hold your hands up and say, actually, this is a real major mess.
Yeah.
So we you know, and which could have been done they could have delayed the results. That there was nothing in the 6 months' time they got to do it that meant they couldn't change the system and say, actually, because we've got to recalculate all this, because we need to go back to schools to check our evidence, we won't be able to do the results till September.
Look, I mean, I'm not a statistician. I don't enjoy reading 350 pages of an off-qual document. But if somebody like me, on a very quick read, could see that there was this glaring problem over independent schools and small centres, I could see that.
And also,
why have they not seen that?
The concept that because you are at a school that's underperformed previously, you as an individual student can't have done well, can't have done as well as predicted, because that's what it's saying to a lot of students.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, your teachers think you're good, but actually your school's never really performed that well, so you've had it.
Well, there's a school, isn't there? Is it Rotherham? A school in Rotherham that has got, is it 80% of its,
I don't know,
been knocked down, and it's interesting when they, I think the Secretary of State said yesterday, or no, it's in the Telegraph headline. I think it came from the Secretary of State that actually that there are some schools where they have over-egged it. You know, they've completely sort of pushed out. You know, as if to say, well, we've got an opportunity here. Let's try and drive up those results. Actually, they have absolutely no idea what standards of those actual students was.
No.
They don't know. They've just.
I know.
You can't have a great year group coming through. We all had that. We all have it. Every single school gets it. You don't know why. They've had exactly the same. They had Mrs. Smith, they had Mr. Jones, they had that same history teacher. I don't know. It just happened. And it's insulting. It's insulting of the profession.
Well, equally, under the whole premise that schools can get better and leadership in a school can get better. I mean, I know the GCSEs in the school that I'm associated with, they've tried to take into account how much they are likely to have been knocked back in the moderation process that they've been through. And again,
I agree. Yeah, I've heard that as well.
Moderation is surely an answer in this. School-to-school moderation, area-to-area moderation.
Yeah. Well, I saw Colin, former HMI, who I have a lot of respect for, was saying that actually you've got, I don't know how many HMI sitting around and not working. Why on earth haven't we mobilised them? And of course the issue he has said is that it is better to actually just have the HMIs back in the DFE and act as advisors to the department, you know, as opposed to this sort of like quango outside of it in order to preserve independence. I mean, in a way, I think we've lost that. You know,
nobody believes that anymore.
Very foggy. We had no idea. I mean, and yesterday the chief inspector was really pushed out a message about, well, you know, well done everybody and all this sort of stuff. But and things, you know, things will work their way through. And actually, that's not their role. I don't see that as the chief inspector's role. There is no evidence that she's bringing to bear. No Ofsted evidence at all about this. This is just.
No, I made that comment when she spoke and said that that's a nothing statement. Anything. You get to the point where you just think who knew this was happening and either didn't tell people or did tell them and it was ignored, because we need to shift. We shouldn't have been in a situation where the exam was everything. I mean, if you think on an individual basis, there can be students that are ill, there can be students that have got traumas, have got reasons not to do well or not even to sit the final exam, and the rest of their career shouldn't be balanced on a 3-hour paper. So we should be in a better position than that.
I talk to a lot of businesses now, you know, in the role I do with the Northern Powerhouse Partnership. I speak to people in the co-op, and they look at our young people and think that the examination system is failing them, because it's not failing them, the students, it probably is. It's failing the businesses, because it's not giving them an indication of the broader range of talents that these young people have. And we've got a cheap system. We have a system that basically pungs everybody into a hot hole in the summer months, and you can have it marked independently, and you can get the results out by the end of August. That, you know, in effect, that adds. And I do understand that the modular aspects, coursework, all of that was all open to abuse. So if ever we get to a new system, Stan, and we've got to push it, we need to ensure that whatever we put in place is broader. It covers a range of issues which sort of sit-down examination will not. And actually, we need to get alignment between the vocational element and the way we assess it there.
Well,
because we're trying to get the same things here.
I only saw a short piece on BTEC results, but in that, the person they were talking to said, yes, but you know, this has been continually assessed. So actually, we're not that far away from being able to give a very accurate decision. So the grades didn't change that much.
Well, I don't think there's the same sort of appeal system, is there?
I've not even heard it mentioned.
I'm not sure that there is. So, I mean, I feel desperately sad, and I don't think. I mean, we ought to stop these, Stan, because actually, since we started this, it's been one catastrophe after another. You know, we've been in a position where we thought, look, it's so quiet. What are we going to talk about? I mean,
I think the other thing, which is a bit more radical, is if they'd have just said, right, actually, we're going to take these results as the teacher said. Now, I know from my experience that school-based assessments can be generous and over-generous. I know that. But the worst-case scenario was that they had higher results this year than last year or next year. And they said that's unfair because people will not compare years accurately.
Yeah.
Apart from getting to university this year, when was the last time anybody checked your A-level results?
No.
Because actually, it's a stepping stone for a cohort to go on. Because once you've done your university, people are interested in what degree you got. Once you've got your degree, they're not really interested anymore. As long as you can tick a box that says, yes, I have a degree or a master's or whatever. It's a stepping stone. And I don't believe that if 1 year's was slightly out of sync with the rest, it would destroy the whole of the education system.
No, I agree with you on that. And I do feel as though I think we could have avoided this.
I definitely think
give attention to the detail of this. There's something inherently wrong with a government that is just about messaging. It needs to get into the detail, and if it can't do it, if its leaders can't do it, it desperately needs to put people in there who are actually knowledgeable about this, so that actually we don't end up with this, because there's a real risk going forward. I think it's highlighting that the messaging, just these big messages, whether it's PPE, care homes, whatever, some nice snappy, I mean, the triple lock thing this week, I mean, that it meant nothing, did it? But it was a nice catchy phrase. It's a nice catchy phrase. That's the messaging, and it's wonderful. It's
hands, face, and space was one the other week, which I
there
felt
we go.
like drawing a little drawing of three people. One with people wringing their hands in anger, one with slap on the face, and then a space between the ears of one particular prime minister. It's just, you're right. It's just this three words, and they're always three words, and often complete nonsense. But other people will quote it back to you.
I know. Well, I think that what we need to do is, I mean, because we'll be back on this next week. We have Russell Harvey joining us, a colleague I work with in the co-op, who's now an independent consultant, who does a lot of work around resilience. And let's face it, you know, these young people have needed, and the profession have needed a lot of this over the last couple of months. So I think, though, we need to make sure we don't lose the opportunity to change for the future, to change it better.
Well, Andy Burnham has tweeted something today, or it may actually have been yesterday, where he said, "This has got to change. Who's up for a fight? Count me in."
Yeah, well, I have to say that the Children's Commissioner, Anne Longfield, basically put that challenge out last night in a statement, and certainly the Northern Powerhouse Partnership are behind that. We will do whatever we can, because what we've got at the moment, it's highlighting the advantages within society that some young people, I'm not blaming those young people, but the system is starting to show how rotten it is. And I think my career, certainly in the co-op, I will continue to fight for those young people who have got so much talent, but actually the system is rigged. Not rigged, but it's set up to make it hard for them. And this has highlighted again these results, you know, where the advantages are in society.
Tell you what, Frank, I've just finished reading that book that Andy Hargreaves sent me, the Moving.
Social mobility thing, yeah.
It is. There's some fantastic references in it to people's work on social mobility and the injustices in some of it. And it really will, well, it'll chime with everything you're saying at the moment, but it'll also make you think about how have these things come to pass? How have we got ourselves in this kind of position?
Yeah, well, I'll have a read, Stan. So we've been on for nearly half an hour. Congratulations on your 40th wedding anniversary.
Isn't it yours this weekend?
It is. We are, because you and I are in Greater Manchester, so you know, meeting up with the family on our 40th wedding anniversary, we can't do it.
Well, our family stood on the path outside the front of the house, and we drank a champagne between us, with nobody touching glasses or nobody going within 2 meters of each other.
Well, we I mean, I'm not sure how we're going to do it, but to have, you know, our family unable to see us on that day doesn't feel right. So, but we are, I think we're law abiding, so we won't want to do anything that, it's about leadership, isn't it?
Yeah.
We've got to show that we
do things properly.
Okay, well, thank you, Stan. Hope people have found that 30 minutes useful.
Well, I have.
And next week, we look forward to welcoming Russell Harvey, and I hope we can get some time to talk about what hopefully will be a GCSE better picture, but I don't hold out.
I wouldn't hold your breath on that one, Frank.
Okay, Stan. Well, take care, and I'll see you next week.
And you. Bye.
Yeah. Bye.